I'm going to start recording right here, and I'll repeat a little bit of what I said earlier so anybody watching this can catch it. Don't look in Unit 4 for your inner ear anatomy notes and PowerPoints. I'm going to send an email out to everyone after this Zoom session to tell everybody that same thing. Unit 4 contains nothing. Unit 1 was the entire ear overview. Unit 2 was the outer ear. Unit 3 was the middle ear anatomy and physiology. Unit 4 is nada. I don't know what it is. Unit 5, inner ear anatomy. We'll spend 2 weeks on Unit 5, this week and next. Unit 6 is inner ear physiology. We'll spend 2 weeks on Unit 6. So you can see that the inner ear is going to require 4 weeks in a row. 2 weeks for anatomy and 2 weeks for physiology. And the reason why is because it's so ding-dong stinking complicated. That's why. Okay? So the outer ear holds nothing to it, and the middle ear holds barely any more, but the inner ear is the center of the universe. It is the heart, the holy of holies. It's the middle. It's the big stuff. So, without any further ado, I will share screen and get into some of the PowerPoint and notes regarding the inner ear. All right, I'm going to pull up this slide right here at the very beginning, and you're going to see a cochlea and a vestibular system. You'll see kind of a pinkish area here, a weird orange area here. We'll be describing all of this in quite a bit of detail, okay? Most of the vestibular system we'll be going into a little bit of, but basically when you're looking at the inner ear, okay, here you go, you're looking at the whole section. Now it's important to realize, and I think what I might just do for the sheer heck of it, is I'm going to bring up the overview of the entire ear, some of that that PowerPoint there, just to highlight where we are, okay? So we really are looking at this section that I'm circling right here. And that section is found deep inside the petrous portion of the temporal bone. Looking at the inner ear from the very top, if you were to do that, you'd see it from the very top if I took out someone's brains, okay? And again, you're looking at the cochlea and the vestibular system, or balance. So this cauliflower area here sticks a little bit more laterally. That's the balance, and the inner part is the cochlea. Looking at the orientation of that inner ear in the head, okay? There it is, and this whole area is the petrous portion of the temporal bone. Petrous, Peter, the rock, it's surrounded by the hardest, most dense bone of the body. There's the temporal bone looking at it from the side. Here would be the temporal bone pulling it away a little bit. And here, okay, now you're looking God knows where, okay? But you're really what we're doing is really trying to highlight some of the inaccessibility of that inner ear, because it's way in there. Okay, I'm going to go back home here, pull up this slide, and highlight for all of you some of the pieces and parts of it. We're going to just be looking here at the gross anatomy of the ear. All right, so this would be the cochlea, and you can see the orange and the yellow, and you're going to see what they call a membranous labyrinth is the orange, and the yellow is the bony labyrinth. When you're looking at the white, the entire white on the back of this slide is solid bone. That's how to think about it. When you think of the cochlea, think of an auger-shaped hole dug into the bone, and then that hole is filled with fluid. And that's about the best way I can describe it. So all of this white here is solid bone, and these are called labyrinths. These are tunnels dug through the bone. And then inside the tunnel, so the brown is the tunnel dug in the bone, and the pink is like a hose snaked into the tunnel. And the hoses, these bags here, and this hose here contains one type of fluid, and the brown area outside contains a different fluid. So the brown area outside is called the bony labyrinth, and the pink is called the membranous labyrinth. And that's the balance system. If you look at the cochlea, same thing. Okay? If you look at the light yellow here, that's the bony labyrinth. That's the auger-shaped hole. That's the twisted hole that I dug into the bone. And then the orange is like a hose that slid into that hole. And the hose contains one type of fluid, and the yellow contains the opposite kind of fluid. Now, it's important to realize that these areas share the same fluid. So follow my cursor. Look at the pink, and look at how it meets the orange. Okay? The same fluid is in the pink areas as is in the cochlea areas. And then if you look at the light brown here, it's continuous with, see this? It's continuous with it. So the bony labyrinths share the same fluids all the way through, the balance and the cochlea. The membranous labyrinths in both the balance and the cochlea system share the same fluids as well. Now I'll go to some of the notes here and we'll read what it says. Bony and membranous labyrinths. The vestibular system, balance, and cochlea both are located in the petrous portion of the temporal bone. They have membranous labyrinths located inside bony labyrinths. Both share the same fluids. Now the fluid in the bony labyrinth is called perilymph. Peri in Latin, P-E-R-I, always means around. Okay, endo, E-N-D-O, always means inside. Endo, peri. So perilymph is the fluid in the bony labyrinths, and endolymph is the fluid inside the membranous labyrinths. The bony labyrinths contain perilymph, the membranous labyrinths contain endolymph. And if you look a little bit, I don't know if any of you have ever taken chemistry, okay, or to look at bananas. Bananas are high in K, high in potassium, okay? Na is salt, sodium. So mostly sodium, less potassium. Endolymph is exactly the opposite. Now when you think about that, the opposite fluids. You ever looked at a battery? Batteries have opposite stuff in them too. Look at a car battery. It's got different fluids in it. That creates electricity. When you're looking at a battery in a flashlight, you're going to have zinc, nickel, or cadmium, or God knows the metals are different, creating an electrical current. That's what your cochlea does. It's creating electricity. Okay? And electricity is the language your brain runs on. Just like the back of your eyes contains the retina. Now, when you think about this really generally, and I want you to think about this quite generally and very broadly, okay? Look at vision loss. You guys, look at this. We all have glasses, all four of us, okay? By the way, did I ever tell you where I got these glasses from? An audiologist in Missouri. Just thought I'd tell you. Anyway, glasses refocus light upon the back of the eye. So the back of the eye, if you think of the eye as a ball, a round thing, okay, and light has to get in there and it has to focus properly on the back. So if this is the back of my eye, if I got a big round eyeball like this, light's coming in, it's got to hit this retina, and that retina changes light into electricity, and electricity is what your brain runs on. Well, the cochlea changes sound into electricity. So the cochlea is the retina, in quotes, of the ear. Okay? So that's what we're getting into here. And 95% of hearing loss is caused by damage to the cochlea. And only 5% of vision loss is caused by damage to the retina. Okay? That makes optometry or opticianry so different from your field. Your fields have nothing to do with each other, because vision loss is light not properly getting to where it's got to go. So you can get glasses, refocus the light, and God's in his heaven and all's well with the world. Okay? Hearing isn't like that. It's like me going up to your eyeballs going, now I scratched your retinas, now go ahead. How do you like me now? Okay? That's what it is. That's why hearing aids are called hearing aids. It's an aid, like a cane for a bad knee, but the knee is bad. Can't fix it. I can give you something to help you, but I can't fix it. Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Can't put the hair cells of the cochlea back together again. It's busted. Okay? That's the thing that people don't understand about hearing loss. And that's where you are required to be a teacher. And you have to explain to your clients that hearing aids for ears aren't like glasses for eyes. And you can use pictures, you can stand on your head, it doesn't matter, but you have to get the message across to your clients that you're not trying to rip them off, and that hearing aids, yep, they're pricey, they're expensive, but the damage done to an ear is so different than the kind of damage that with the eye, okay? And I think that's something you really have to internalize here. That's why we spend time looking at the anatomy of the inner ear, because it's all about that. Okay, both the balance system, the vestibular system, that's why I keep saying both, the vestibular system and the cochlea both have hair cells. So inside of the membranous labyrinth, inside of the, look at this, inside of here are hair cells. Inside here are hair cells. Hair cells, these weird, tiny, tiny little filaments. Hair cells are not in the bony labyrinths. Hair cells are inside the membranous labyrinths, bathed by endolymph fluid. Let's go to another slide here. Here's where the hair cells are. Okay, I'm going back so you can see it. Okay, we're looking at the balls here, the bulges, and you're looking at this sac and this sac. So here, here, and in here, these guys, right where I'm circling. Hair cells are located there in the vestibular system, not in here, just here, in that bulb, this bulb, that bulb here, and this bulge, and in there. And in the cochlea, in the orange area, all throughout the coil, all the way to the tippy top. So here it's showing you sensory areas. Sensory means hair cells. Okay, we'll be looking at those closer. They're inside the ampullae. These are called ampulla. You'll see that later in your notes. That bulge, this bulb, that bulb, and then in the utricle and the saccule, and here's inside the cochlea, wrapped all the way around. Notice the cochlea has 2.5 turns. In a chinchilla, 3 turns. Okay, but in the human, the cochlea has 2.5 coils. Here's hair cells inside the vestibular system. So hair cells inside of these areas. See these blackened areas? So you're looking at hair cells there. Now look at these. The nerves come from the hair cells. And here's the hair cells. See those bulges? Those are hair cells, and these are the hairs. Tiny little hairs sticking out of the top. And on the hairs, they're surrounded by gelatin, like a gelatinous mass. And on top of that gelatinous mass, I'll pull it closer, are tiny little ear stones called otoliths. Otoliths. Now you may hear elderly people talking about, oh, my ear stones fell off. My ear stones fell off. And the doctor tells me that's why I get dizzy spells, because my ear stones fell. I remember when I first heard that, I was like, what? Well, these do fall off. And when they do fall off, the person gets a really weird pathology of getting terribly dizzy when he or she puts his head in a certain position, tying your shoes or something, and then all of a sudden, whoa, no. Or I don't want to go on those carnival rides. No, no, no. I'm going to throw up. Okay. They call that benign paroxysmal vertigo, BPV. We'll get to it later. We'll look at it. Anyway, here's a close-up of those hair cells inside the vestibular system or balance organs. Here's the hair cell. Now notice their different shape. This shape is fat like a pear. This shape is longer like a test tube. Now, remember when we covered the acoustic reflex arc last week in the middle ear, and we said there was an afferent part and an efferent part? A-F-F-E-R-E-N-T, E-F-F-E-R-E-N-T. Afferent means brain going. Efferent means message from the brain to your muscles, to squeeze your fingers or whatever. Sensory information, vision, taste, touch, hearing, smell, is all afferent. It's brain going information. Efferent information is muscles, okay? Messages from your brain telling your limbs to move or whatever. So look at the hair cells. You have two types of hair cells. You have type 1, type 2. Type 1 sends info to your brain. Type 2 takes info from your brain. It's a two-way street. And your cochlea is the same way. Here's the gelatinous mass. Here's the otoliths on the top. And why do you have those otoliths? If you look at that, it just gives you a bit of inertia. If your head moves, the otoliths are a little bit of weight. So when your head moves, the otoliths lag behind. They provide that lagging action. And that lagging action bends the hairs. And if the otoliths fall off, when you move your head, you don't have that lagging action. When you don't have that, messages are not sent to the brain, so you're going to get dizzy spells. So this is all part and parcel of the same thing. So let's go to your notes and read a little bit more straight up from your notes. So here we go. We first covered the labyrinths of both systems together. They both have a bony labyrinth, both have a membranous labyrinth, they both have perilymph, they both have endolymph, they both have hair cells. And they both have afferent hair cells and efferent hair cells. Okay, that's the top of page 1. Let's move down to the bottom or to the middle of page 1. I'll scroll up a little bit here, and let's get the vestibular system out of the way, because we're not going to deal much with the vestibular system. We deal with the cochlea. We're not dealing much with the ear. But you got to have a taste and a tolerance and some knowledge of the vestibular system before we wave goodbye to it, okay? Because they share the same fluids and they're located in the same area. So here we go. Vestibular system, human balance. Now I'm just highlighting that one sentence. Human balance has 3 parts to it. Vision, vestibular system, and the third one, proprioception. Now what the hell is that? Proprioception. Ever got a DUI? Never been driving drunk? Don't do it. Cop's going to pull you over, and he or she may have you stand outside of your car, and the cop is going to say this. I'll stand away so you can see me better. It's going to say, okay, close your eyes and put your arms straight out. Okay, now keep your eyes closed. Now touch your nose with your hand. Touch your nose with your hand. Can you do that? If you're drunk, you're doing this stuff. You're missing. Your proprioception is gone. Okay, proprioception is knowledge of where your limbs are in space without you looking. Proprioception, knowledge of where your limbs are in space without you looking. Every muscle has a fiber in it. Every arm muscle, every leg muscle, there's one fiber in every muscle That's for proprioception. It tells your brain where your limbs are in space without you looking. So vision, vestibular system, proprioception, 1 + 2 + 3, balance. That's your sense of balance. So people with vestibular problems rely on their vision more. People with vision problems rely on their proprioception and vestibular system more. A stool takes 3 legs to stand up, okay? When one leg is bad, you got to rely on the other 2, and the stool's probably got problems. People with vestibular problems have problems at night because they can't see very well. At night, you can't see very well, so they'll have real balance problems. A chain is as strong as its weakest link, okay? So always remember that your balance system has 3 parts: vision, proprioception, vestibular system. Now let's look at the vestibular system. Let's go in there. So when we go in the vestibular system, you will notice it has 3 parts. The vestibular system itself has 3 parts. So here you go. Vestibular system consists of the utricle, saccule, semicircular canals. Utricle, saccule, semicircular canals. There it sits in your nose. Okay? Now, utricle means little bag or leather bag. Saccule means little sac. Okay? These are both membranous labyrinths, and so they contain endolymph. They are surrounded by the vestibule, the bony labyrinth that contains perilymph. And what do? They detect linear acceleration, up and down or sideways. So first let's look at them. Go on our notes and take a look. Okay, here you go. Saccule, whoops, don't move it. Saccule over here, utricle over here. Okay, so saccule and utricle. I don't know which one is which anymore. I forget. But what do? They tell whether you've accelerated in a horizontal direction and up and down. Have you ever gone in an elevator and the elevator's going up the building really high? Zzz, and when it slows down, you're going, you get that flutter in your tummy? That's your utricle and your saccule. Okay? If you've ever been sitting in a car next to someone in traffic and you're not sure if your car is moving or if their car is moving, and you push on your brake even harder because you're not sure, which was it? Are you moving or are they moving? Hey, that's your balance system trying to figure it out. Okay? Vision, proprioception, and vestibular system. And so you're pushing the brake real hard, and meanwhile you're not moving. It's the other car that's slowly moving ahead. Your whole balance system's trying to figure it out, okay? So utricle and saccule are for detecting horizontal or vertical linear acceleration. That's what those 2 parts are for. The 3rd part is for this thing called your head. Now when you look at your head, unlike an elbow that has only one, it's a hinge joint. I can only move my elbow, my arm in one way. If I move my arm sideways, I'll break my elbow, okay? It only bends in one direction. Same with a knee, same with a knuckle, okay? It only bends in one direction. If I bend my finger sideways, I'll break it. Your head is different. It's on a neck. And your neck, you can move your head any which way, all around. So the 3rd part of your vestibular system is your semicircular canals. So let's look at the semicircular canals, because those guys are a trip and a half. Look at these guys here in pink. Semicircular canals. They are all 3 at 90-degree angles to each other. They call that orthogonal planes. I'm going to stop sharing so I can point that up at my ceiling. Okay, look up at the corner up there. See where the ceiling touches the two walls? Those are perpendicular angles. They're all 90-degree angles to it. It's like me having a hand and then putting this on it. Okay, I got this plane, and the bottom one. Okay, they're at 90-degree angles to each other, like a GPS system, 3 dimensions, one way, and the other way. That means any which way I move my head, any which way, fluid is going to move in one or more of those semicircular canals. Why? Because they are at orthogonal planes to each other, all 90 degrees. So when you look at the picture here, highlight the fact, look at those. They are 90-degree angles to each other. And no matter which way you move your head, fluid is going to activate hair cells in one or more of these bulbs. And these bulbs are called ampullae. Ampullae. A-M-P-U-L-L-A-E in plural. Ampulla, 1, ampullae, plural. You have 5 of them, okay? 5 ampullae. You got three semicircular canals. You'd think you'd have 6. Sorry, look at this one here. See how it joins there? And this one joins here. They only have 1 ampulla. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 ampulla, utricle, saccule. All right, very good. So, any which way that you move your head, hair cells in either this bulb, this ampulla, this one, or this one are going to get bent. That's the point. And again, ampulla, 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 macula of utricle, saccule. And the macula areas, those are hair cell areas in the utricle. Macula are hair cell areas in the saccule. And then you have the ampulla, A, B, and C, the 3 semicircular canals. And again, here's the hair cells in the macula of the right ear. A close-up. Again, another close-up. Let's look closely here. I always hate that big black bar at the top. I wish, there you go, go away. Okay, macula of utricle and saccule. There's the hair cells. Look at this, skinny one, fat one. Okay, afferent hair cell, efferent hair cell, efferent hair cell, afferent hair cell, efferent. Okay, notice the gelatin around, and then the ear stones on the top. Then the nerves. And look at this. See, you have a red nerve here and a blue one there. Well, the red is brain going, and the blue is, or I should say, the blue is brain going, and the red is coming back, motor. Sensory information, vision, touch, smell, hearing. Motor information, muscles. Okay, motor, muscles. So, afferent, efferent. Sensory, afferent, motor, efferent. See how it's a two-way street. Or in Germany they'd say, es ist nicht eine Einbahnstraße. It's not a one-way street, two-way. All right, this guy here now is moving his head. Okay, motion is going to happen, but that's mostly going to be in the semicircular canals. So here's the semicircular canals in the ampulla of the semicircular canals. Once again, the gelatinous mass. Here's the hair cells. Any which way the head is going to move, these are going to bend. Okay? Guy moves his head. Look at the bending of that. Head at rest. Okay, now we'll go back to the notes here, and we'll get out of the vestibular system. Let's go right where we were to our good old notes. There we are, notes. Okay, read with me. Maculae and saccule, or maculae are inside the utricle and saccule. They contain type 1 and type 2 hair cells, read afferent and efferent. And then right below where I'm highlighting now, the 3 semicircular canals form 3 orthogonal planes. The semicircular canals terminate into the vestibule as a total of 5 enlarged bulbs called ampullae. There it is. The semicircular canals themselves are bony labyrinths that contain perilymph, and inside the ampullae is endolymph. The ampullae are at the ends of the semicircular canals, as you saw in the picture. At the ends of the semicircular canals, here you go. At the ends of the semicircular canals, inside each ampulla are cristae, or ridges. Well, that's these. Ridges, cristae or ridges. They detect angular acceleration and head position in space, the perception of turning. Not so much linear acceleration horizontally or up and down, but more change in direction. Change in direction and also your head location in space. Good. Summary. Maculae and cristae of the whole vestibular system contain type 1 and type 2 hair cells. And these, put a star by this, these correspond to outer hair cells and inner hair cells. Okay, because your cochlea has inner and outer hair cells. So if we go here and go home, here's your cochlea. This also contains afferent hair cells and efferent hair cells. And in the cochlea, they're not called type 1 and type 2. They're called inner and outer. And inner hair cells are afferent, outer hair cells are efferent. We'll be looking a whole lot more of these. Oh, we'll have pictures. Oh, faux show. All right. Let's talk now about a little bit of damage to the vestibular system, and then we'll be done. So what we're covering is this, right what I'm highlighting to here. There we go. That grayed area. See that? And I'll bring it a little closer so it's bigger. Whoa, way too big. Hey, how are you? Hold the fort, Charlie. Man. Okay, have a look. Damage to the vestibular system results in vertigo, or look at that, nystagmus, Greek for drowsiness. Now, what the heck is that about? Well, here we go. Time to stop sharing and for me to talk about trains. So here you are. You're in your car, and you're parked at the bars have gone down because the train's going by. Stop. So you're pull up to a stop, and you're counting the train cars. When you're going 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's nystagmus. You're tracking. You're counting 1, 2. Back to the center. 2, 3, 4. Same with a ballerina who's twisting while she's on one toe, and her head's doing this. She's tracking. Okay? You've got a slow movement, snapping back to the center. Slow movement, snapping back to the center. And that's what you're trying to do when you're trying to keep your balance. If you've been drinking too much and you have now you're getting drowsy, you feel like you might throw up, you lay down on your bed, you're half crashed out. If your roommate walked up to you and opened up your eyes, they'd see your eyes doing this. Because you're desperately trying to find center ground. You're trying to find that middle. You're counting trains. Drowsiness, nystagmus. Let's go to your notes because there's 2 tests, or there's a test done for balance problems. And by the way, your counterparts at Missouri State University in Springfield, getting their AUDs in audiology, they take a course called Vestibular Testing. That's one of the scopes of practice of an audiologist is vestibular testing. Thank God we don't have to do it because it can be a mess. Here we go. Damage to the vestibular system results in vertigo, nystagmus, Recall, balance is comprised of 3 parts: vestibular system, vision, and proprioception. If one is damaged, the other 2 try to take over. People with vestibular problems have difficulty at nighttime. Here you put a star by it. BPV, benign paroxysmal vertigo. A very common vestibular disorder. Sudden vertigo when head is in certain specific positions. Results from tiny ear stones that have fallen off cristae inside the ampullae. The hair cells no longer give correct messages about head location in space. BPV. It is a very common problem, found commonly in adults over 50. It's not rare, it's not dangerous, it's not cancer. But what doctors do is they often do positional head positions. They'll turn your head back, they'll make you lay back on a bed, you'll have to hang your head from the bed, and they'll turn your head sideways. And holding your head sideways, they'll make you sit up again. They're trying to position those ear stones to fall back on the gelatin again. Okay? It's called positional nystagmography. And you got the head, they're going to have it tilted, and they're going to try and make those ear stones fall back to where they should be. It often helps, often does. BPV. It's more of a nuisance than anything else. What's the testing done for vestibular systems? You should know this as HIS is to be, and I'll tell you why. Because you're often going to be reading letters from doctors. You're going to have clients coming to your office who may have seen doctors about balance or whatever, and you should be able to recognize this initial, electronystagmography. Nystagmus, electronystagmography. And what is it? It's done to test for vertigo problems. You don't do it. The HIS does not do vestibular testing. Audiologists do it. But ENG, if I stop sharing for a minute, it's an electrode on the eye, right beside the eye, and then it's an electrode over here, another electrode for a ground, and they'll have you sit in a chair, and they'll be having lights going, moving. And they're watching your eyes. They're tracking your eyes. Are you following the lights? Just like counting cars on a train. Then they'll make the lights go the other way. They want to induce nystagmus. Can you track the following of the light? Okay, good. Then they take warm water, 7 degrees above 98.6. Now, you know in the States in Fahrenheit, 98.6 is your blood temperature. So 7 degrees higher than 98.6, they'll irrigate your ear canal. They'll just flush it with water. And when they flush it with water, it's really close to one of those semicircular canals. And it induces nystagmus. If it doesn't, you got a problem. So they want you to get dizzy. They want you to flush in the ear, and you go, oh, good, okay. Now they put cold water, 7 degrees below 98.6, and they'll watch you get nystagmus in exactly the opposite direction. And if you don't have that, you got a problem. So they're inducing nystagmus on purpose. It's called electronystagmography. And again, I just want you to know that it exists, basically what it is, what's it for, to test for balance problems. It's not in your scope of practice, but you're going to be dealing sort of with medicine, so you should have somewhat of an idea of what it is. Well, there's our little tour of the vestibular system. Told you, not spending a lot of time there. Now we're focusing on the cochlea. So let's move on down to the cochlea. See if I can find my way down here. Ah, there you go. Page up, page. Okay, here we go. Cochlea, Greek for snail shell. That's what the word cochlea means. It's a winding organ with 2.5 turns. Chinchilla cochlea is often shown because in these animals the cochlea extends into middle ear space. Now let me stop sharing so I can highlight that for you. Chinchilla, those weird little rats, a lot of times for our field when we're examining what hair cells do and what cochleas do, we always pick on chinchillas. You know why? Because their cochlea sticks into the middle ear space. So they'll have the eardrum and the three little bones, but their cochlea sticks into the middle ear space. So they can lop it off for easy excision. Ours isn't. Our cochlea is embedded in bone. Okay? So getting a human cochlea to hold it in your hand. By the way, how big is a human cochlea? That big. As big as the tip of your little finger. About smaller than a sugar cube. Okay? The whole thing, all 2.5 turns. If you look at your eardrum is about as big as your finger looking straight at it, the end of your finger. A little bit, about like a dime, not like a dime, maybe a little smaller than a dime. Same with the cochlea. The human cochlea, however, is embedded in bone. It's a hole dug in the bone. So for me, asking for a cochlea is like me saying, go across the street and pull out the telephone pole. So you take the telephone pole. Okay, now give me the hole. I want the hole. So you'd have to dig all around the hole, an inch around the hole, like a cup-shaped piece of earth, and you'd have to give me that, because that's the hole. That's why you don't find cochleas laying around. Okay? They're hard to excise. You'd have to cut all around it and not puncture it, because a cochlea in a human is a hole dug in the petrous bone, like a labyrinth, auger-shaped drill, and then a hose snaked in that, and then the hole is filled with one type of fluid, and the hose is filled with a different kind of fluid. And inside the hose is the hair cells. And it's just so you get kind of an idea. If you're kind of wrapping your head around this, join the club, because it's not easy. Here you go. The human don't worry about this stuff here, just this, how many millimeters wide. Basically, I just say it's the tip of your pinky finger. The human cochlea is remarkably inaccessible. Buried inside the hardest bone of the body, the petrous bone, which is a part of the temporal bone, like an auger-twisted hole. Note location of bony and membranous labyrinths. Note the fluid inside each labyrinth. Bony labyrinth contains perilymph. Membranous labyrinth contains endolymph. Don't worry about ductus reunions. I really couldn't care less. It's just the communication of endolymph between the vestibular system and the cochlea. When I showed you that, all I did was show you basically this slide right here. There's your, whoa, go back to the PowerPoint. Better right here. Here's your ductus reunions right there. It's where they, here's an endolymphatic sac that creates endolymph, and it's fed to both of them. Okay. Scala, stairs in Italian. Go up the scala, give me some wine. Gino, scala vestibuli, scala media, scala tympani. So here we go. Scala, scala, scala. You have 3 chambers. So let's look at those 3 chambers. Okay. Down, 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 down. Keep on. Ooh, way far, way too far, way too far. Okay. First look at this slide. All this white here, solid bone. Here's your your bony labyrinth on the outside. This is the tunnel dug in bone. Here's the cochlear tunnel dug in bone. Here's the hose snaked inside. Utricle, saccule, ampulla, 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 okay? Bony labyrinth, right where my arrow is. Bony labyrinth above and below. Membranous labyrinth inside. Here's a shot now highlighting the membranous labyrinth. So now we're focusing on the membranous labyrinth. And again, utricle, saccule, ampulla, 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 ductus reunions, and then membranous labyrinth here. So all the dark is membranous labyrinth, all the light is bony labyrinth. And then here's your eighth nerve. This is going to your brain. And the eighth nerve, you can see, is formed of thousands of little fibers, just like a rope. A rope is tons and tons of fibers all wrapped up together. Well, that's your eighth nerve, the same thing. And your eighth nerve is connected to your inner hair cells. You have 3,000 inner hair cells. You have 10 fibers attached to each hair cell for a total of 30,000 of these fibers. But we'll get into that mañana, later. Now, let's look at the membranous labyrinth a little less grossly, a little closer. Look, see how it's different here? Here it's just shown like a dark area. Here, you can see that actually it's not like a round hose. Really, it's more triangular in shape. Look at here, especially. See how it's kind of straight here, and it's kind of triangular in shape. And I want you to keep that triangle in mind. We're not going into the vestibular system anymore. Leave that puppy behind. We're focusing on the cochlea. Notice how the membranous labyrinth is not simply like a round hose. The membranous labyrinth is more like a triangular tube. Okay? Now look closer. We'll bring it in closer. Now we'll focus on that membranous labyrinth. See how it's like a triangle? I'll go back. Take a look here. All we're doing is taking a cross section. We're going to cut right across. So now you can see that there's chambers inside. It's kind of like, here's a bony labyrinth. Okay, here's bony labyrinth. Here's membranous labyrinth. So bony, membranous, bony. All right, I'll do it again. Bony, membranous, bony. And now let's cut. And when you do that, you can see bony labyrinth, right where my cursor is. Membranous labyrinth, bony labyrinth. And that goes all the way up. Here again, bony labyrinth, membranous labyrinth, bony labyrinth. So it's almost like the membranous labyrinth splits the bony labyrinth in half. It literally splits it in half, shaped like a triangle, and it splits it in half. Good. Keep that in your heads. Okay, this is showing you, again, just the membranous labyrinth areas, but it highlights all the little eighth nerve fibers leaving the cochlea and eighth nerve fibers leaving the vestibular system going to the brain. Fine. Here's a cross-section of a cat's cochlea. Look at the cat's cochlea. They just did a cross-section. Remember, the whole thing is this big, and in a cat, even smaller. And they just cut right down the middle. And look where my cursor is. Bony labyrinth, membranous labyrinth, bony labyrinth. Bony, membranous, bony. Bony, membranous, bony. Okay? So this is all bone surrounding here, solid bone. And this is a bone core in the inside. But you can see how that membranous labyrinth splits bony from bony. Okay? And here, now to highlight that, I've unrolled the cochlea. And when you unroll the cochlea, it's about 1 inch long. 2.5 centimeters, about 1 inch long. Okay? It has 2.5 coils. And just for ease of memory, it's 2.5 centimeters if you rolled it out. So here you go. Here's your foot plate of your stapes, pushing in and out of the oval window. Here's the round window that bulges, so when you push in on the oval window, the round window bulges. And here's scala vestibuli, bony labyrinth, scala tympani, bony labyrinth, scala media, membranous labyrinth. Bony, membranous, bony. But you can see that the bony labyrinths communicate with each other. And where do they communicate with each other? Right here at the end, right here at the tip. And that little tip, that little area where my cursor is, that's called the helicotrema. And I always like to sing the word. Helicotrema, la 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 la. Helicotrema, la 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 la. So here's your bony labyrinth, and fluid will go around here to push on your round window. So when the oval window pushes in, fluid goes around and pushes on your round window out. You've got this back and forth movement. If you don't have that back and forth movement, you're going to have a problem. That's why a conductive hearing loss can be more than the middle ear makes up, as we've learned in Unit 3. Anyway, so, and these bony labyrinths are called scala, because in the cochlea, they're like stairs. They're going up and around. So I'll go back here for a second. Scala vestibuli, oval window. Scala tympani is associated with the round window. Scala media isn't associated with any window. Okay, scala media is just where the hair cells are. Okay, and notice this too. The scala media gets wider toward the narrow tip of the cochlea, and it gets narrower toward the wide end of the cochlea. It's exactly back-asswards from the way you'd think. Look at the next slide. Here's the cochlea rolled up again. Okay, here's a cross section. This is the same thing as the cat's. Okay, it's just my drawing of it. All right, so all this is solid bone, temporal bone, and here's your, look at the bottom one. Scala tympani, scala media, scala vestibuli. And this is bony labyrinth, membranous labyrinth. Bony, membranous, bony. Bony, membranous, bony. So, and so on. So basically, you can see that the triangular areas, it's shaped like a triangle. And that's reminiscent of the slide showing you here. There's that triangle. Okay, that's what I'm trying to highlight here. And your hair cells are actually located here, and here, and here, right in the, see where those, like, almost like, that looks like a weird letter C, okay? Your hair cells are located right inside there, right here, here, and here. And something else to take home. Notice how the scala media gets bigger and bigger as you go to the narrow end of the cochlea. Just like what you saw here. Okay, same here. It's shorter, gets wider, and gets wider yet as you go to the top of the cochlea. Now, have you taken Acoustics 110? Have you taken Acoustics 110? Did you learn about mass and stiffness? Well, the cochlea is tonal topic. That means specific frequencies are represented in specific places, just like keys on a piano. Okay, the high-pitched keys over here, the bass over here, specific frequencies are represented in specific places. And in acoustics, we learn that mass resonates with low frequencies. Okay, you can't jiggle a locomotive. You can't move it back and forth. It's got too much mass. What comes through your ceiling when your neighbors upstairs are playing music too loud? The bass guitar and the drums, because your ceiling has mass. Mass resonates with lows. Stiffness, like a spring sticking out of the wall. If it's really stiff, I'll have a hard time pushing slowly back and forth. But on a really stiff spring, if I go, no problem. Stiffness resonates with highs. So now go back to the cochlea. Back to the cochlea. This area here has more mass. It's going to resonate with low frequencies. That's why low frequency hair cells are here. This area has less mass, has more stiffness. And that's why high frequency hair cells are located here. So if these hair cells are activated, you hear a treble sound. If these hair cells are activated, you'll hear a middle sound. If these hair cells are activated, you'll hear a low pitch sound. All right, let's go to our notes. Gotta like it. Here we go. Told you this stuff gets weirder and weirder, and I get weirder and weirder as we go. So, scala, stairs in Latin. Scala vestibuli is a bony labyrinth, contains perilymph. Associate that with the oval window. Scala tympani, it's also bony labyrinth, contains perilymph. Associate with the round window. And I'll show you in the picture here. There you go. Okay, scala vestibuli, bony labyrinth, associate with the oval window. Scala tympani, bony labyrinth, associate with the round window. Okay, showing you right there in the picture. Good. And then scala media, well, that often is called your cochlear duct, because that's where all the action takes place. That is itsky pitsky. That's the center of the hearing universe. Scala media. It's a membranous labyrinth filled with endolymph and contains the organ of Corti, which is your hair cells and all the supporting cells. The organ of Corti is your end organ for hearing. It contains your inner and outer hair cells. And of course the helicotrema, la 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 la, that's a small opening at the apex of the cochlea. Small opening at the apex of the cochlea. This is the base. This is the apex. Okay, this is the base. This would be the apex. I haven't got a helicotrema drawn here. Okay, but basically to give you the idea, it connects the scala vestibuli to the scala tympani. It connects the scala vestibuli to the scala tympani. Okay, back over to here. And now we'll finish here for today, and we'll continue on this next week, but I'm going to give you a close-up of a single turn of the cochlea. So we're going to go over here, over to here, down. Okay. There you go. There's a close-up of a single turn. So what you're looking at here is one of these guys. Whoops. We're taking a look at one of these. Remember, this is 2.5 turns. We're just taking a cross-section, and we're just going to look at one coil. So down we go. Whoops. There it is. Scala vestibuli, scala media, scala tympani. And now look at, here's the 8th nerve leaving. Here's where the hair cells are. See that little slit there? That's where the hair cells would be. I'll bring it closer. Okay, so inner hair cells, outer hair cells. Inner hair cells, outer hair cells. Okay, back over to here. This is called your Reissner's membrane. Reissner. It separates the scala vestibuli from scala media. And this floor, that's called your basilar membrane. Basilar membrane. And that separates here, basilar, I can circling it right here. And that separates the scala tympani from scala media. So scala tympani from scala media. And then you see this weird flap over here. That's filled with gelatin. And that's your tectorial membrane. And that rests right on top of the hairs of your hair cells. You'll see this big fan shape here. That's called your spiral ligament. That holds this floor tight. And that floor, this basilar membrane where I'm drawing my cursor here, is held tight between the spiral ligament and spiral lamina. Lamina in Latin means layers. Laminated wood means layers of plywood. Lamina is layers. Well, here's the layer of bone and a layer of bone, and your 8th nerve fibers go right through between those two layers. Okay, so your spiral lamina and your spiral ligament, two spirals, spiral and spiral, okay, they hold this basilar membrane tight. And the basilar membrane is the floor It's the floor upon which your hair cells all stand. So your hair cells are all standing on top of the floor, okay? But it's that basilar membrane is the floor of the whole organ of Corti. So if you circle this whole thing, it's called the organ of Corti. These are supporting cells. These are outer hair cells, inner hair cells, supporting cells, tectorial membrane, and one area we didn't look at is this weird area, right where my cursor is here. That's called your stria vascularis. Stria meaning stripe, vascular meaning blood supply. And this is what feeds the hair cells. This is the oxygen and blood supply to the hair cells. So you've just now covered the gross anatomy of the cochlea. Next week, we'll delve more into the pieces and the parts. We'll look at it closer, and we'll get much better shots of things closer up. But you can see here too, stria vascularis, spiral ligament, spiral lamina. Look where my cursor is, kind of hard to see white on white, but spiral lamina here, spiral lamina here, supporting cells on the right, okay? Outer hair cells where I'm circling here, inner hair cells, tectorial membrane, scala media containing endolymph, scala vestibuli containing perilymph, scala tympani containing perilymph, bony labyrinth, membranous labyrinth, bony labyrinth. There you go. Anatomy 101 of the inner ear. Next week we'll be looking more closely at the hair cells and the supporting cells and all the good stuff like that. We'll get more into detail as to what it really looks like close up. I'll be bringing you in. Here's a scala media. Whoops. Whoa, 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 whoa. Here's a scala media. Stria vascularis, spiral ligament, basilar membrane, spiral lamina. There's the layers. Reissner's membrane. Okay, the tectorial membrane has been torn off here, I think. Oh no, tectorial membrane's that weird white shaded area there. Outer hair cells where I'm circling here. Inner hair cells. Supporting cells, these yellow ones. Supporting cells, these yellow ones. These are inner hair cells, they're afferent. These are outer hair cells, they're efferent. Blood supply, stria vascularis. Here's hair cells close up, looking at inner hair cells, outer hair cells from the top. And when you're looking at damage, there's damage. Normal, damaged. Okay? You can't fix this, obviously. All you can do is wear hearing aids. And that's why they say perfect hearing looks like this, impaired hearing looks like that. So we'll be looking more at hair cells, and I'll show you all kinds of good stuff next week, but that's enough for now. All righty. I'll try and, let's see, I'll stop sharing screen, and I'll hope to God I'll say a little prayer that I did record this. Oh, yeah, thank God it says recorded. As I told you, one time last year I made that mistake. I had to do it all over again because I didn't record. So I had to sit there in front of the computer by myself saying the whole damn thing over again. Lesson well learned. Anyway, it's been a slice. See you next week, and we'll continue more on inner ear anatomy. All righty. Ciao.